Thanks for watching. Drop a comment and let me know where you're tuning in from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The Emperor's Dream and the Great Crusade. In a distant age of strife and darkness, a solitary figure rose on ancient Terra. This being, known only as the Emperor of Mankind, carried a quiet resolve and a grand dream to end the long night of anarchy and reunite humanity under one banner. In soft steps he walked the war-torn earth, gathering the scattered tribes through wisdom and war alike. With golden armor shimmering in dim light, he brought unity to Terra's techno-barbarian kingdoms. Each victory was a calm before the storm, a preparation for the greater quest to come. With Terra finally at peace, the Emperor turned his gaze to the stars. Human worlds lay isolated, lost amid warp storms and alien threats. In a gentle yet unyielding voice, the Emperor declared the start of a great crusade. This would be a glorious odyssey across the galaxy to restore contact with lost colonies and protect humanity from Xenos and the malevolent forces of chaos. He envisioned a golden Imperium of man, unified in truth and reason, free of superstition. To achieve this, the Emperor knew he would need an army of heroes, champions who could inspire and lead on 100,000 worlds. Thus were born the Primarchs. In secret gene laboratories beneath the Himalayan mountains, the Emperor labored by candlelight, blending arcane science and his own immortal essence to create 20 superhuman sons. Each Primarch was to be a demigod general, immensely strong, intelligent, and noble of spirit, the perfect commanders for his legions of warriors. They were designed to embody facets of humanity's greatness, one as fearless as a lion, another as passionate as a raging fire, each unique and magnificent. In these infant Primarchs floating in their golden gestation capsules, the Emperor invested hopes and dreams for a restored human empire. They were his sons, and in time would become the living symbols of the Imperium's ideals. Fate, however, proved cruel. On a quiet, moonless night, as the Emperor's biotechnological creations neared maturity, a great warp vortex engulfed the secret vault. The forces of chaos, the very evils the Emperor sought to thwart, reached through the Imperium and scattered the Primarchs to the stars. In a single tragic moment, the Emperor's beloved children were stolen away, cast out across distant worlds before they ever knew their father's touch. Though the Emperor's heart burned with anguish at this loss, his resolve did not falter. He emerged from the catacombs beneath Terra with a new plan, calm and determined. If he could not raise the Primarchs from infancy, he would find them in the field. From the genetic essence of those lost Primarchs, the Emperor bred the Legiones Astartes, the Space Marines. These were noble warriors, engineered from the Primarch's own gene seed. Each legion formed in the image of their distant gene sire. They were fewer and far mightier than any mere army, clad in thunderous power armor and armed with faith and bolters. In the dawn haze of Terra's morning, thousands of Space Marines knelt before the Emperor in shining battle plate of many colors. He raised his hand in benediction, and a hush fell. These transhuman warriors, though giants, listened as children to a father. The Emperor's voice was gentle yet firm as he gave them their purpose: to venture forth and reunite mankind's scattered sons and daughters among the stars. And so began the Great Crusade, a campaign of reconquest and illumination. For 2 centuries, the Emperor and his armies traveled from system to system like a fleet of bright torchbearers in the void. Each world they found, They offered unity and enlightenment under the Imperium. The Space Marine legions descended on planets as angels of deliverance, sometimes welcomed with tears of joy, other times met with the thunder of battle. In those early days, when the Emperor walked among them, the Imperium experienced a golden age of hope. Forgotten technologies were rediscovered, alien tyrants were cast down, and human worlds, long sundered by warp storms, were knitted into the growing tapestry of the Imperium. One by one, the Emperor also rediscovered his lost Primarchs, the prodigal sons scattered years before, on distant, varied worlds, jungle death planets, hive cities, feudal kingdoms. Each Primarch had grown to adulthood, forging their own legends. Many recognized the Emperor at once as their father and swore fealty with tears of loyalty. Others required gentle understanding or proof of worth, but in time, all but 2 missing ones were found and reunited with their legions. Imagine the scenes: the winged Primarch Sanguinius, noble and radiant, kneeling before the Emperor in heartfelt reverence. Proud Lionel Johnson, silent in acknowledgement of the one man greater than he. Fierce Leman Russ, the Wolf King of a feral world, laughing as he clasped the Emperor's arm in bond of brotherhood. These moments were like the return of demigods to the fold, each Primarch taking command of the Space Marines who shared his blood and temperament. The Emperor's family was whole again, save for 2 names lost to history, and the crusade surged onward with renewed fervor. Under the Emperor's direct leadership, the Imperium expanded rapidly. Alien empires fell before the Emperor's luminance, and human worlds rejoiced to be part of something grand and just. It was during this time that the Emperor set down the principles of the imperial truth, a secular creed of enlightenment that shunned old superstitions. In echoing forum chambers and on windswept plains, iterators, imperial philosophers, spoke calmly to gathered multitudes about reason, science, and the unity of mankind. The Emperor was often at the forefront, a serene, guiding presence. On one memorable day, he even attended the destruction of Terra's last church, conversing peacefully with its chaplain before the end to show that reason must light the way over faith in the new age. The Great Crusade was as much a war of ideas as of blades, and for a time hope burned bright and unshadowed. Finally came the grand victory at Ulanor, where a massive greenskin horde was vanquished in a triumphal war. In the aftermath of that victory, amidst the cheering of thousands of Astartes and Imperial Army soldiers, the Emperor made a momentous decision. He announced that he would return to Terra to attend to a special project, a mysterious undertaking in the Imperial Palace that he spoke of only obliquely. In his stead, the Emperor appointed his most beloved son, Horus Lupercal, as War Master to command all the Imperial armies and continue the crusade. This decision was met with heartfelt applause. None doubted Horus's brilliance or the Emperor's choice. Horus, the Primarch of the Luna Wolves, had been the first found and the closest to the Emperor's heart. The Emperor trusted him as one would trust an elder son to guide his younger brothers. Clad in shimmering black and gold armor, Horus humbly accepted the title of War Master and vowed to complete the Great Crusade in the Emperor's name. And so the Emperor departed the front lines. The Great Crusade went on, now led by the Primarchs and the newly minted War Master. In the halls of Terra, the Emperor worked in secrecy on his grand project, later whispered to be a webway that could free humanity from reliance on warp travel. He withdrew from public view, trusting his sons to govern war and compliance across the stars. For a time, all continued as before. The Primarchs prosecuted campaigns, and Horus coordinated vast armadas with peerless skill. Yet shadows lengthened subtly. Without the Emperor's daily guidance, rivalries and doubts began to fester between brothers. The weight of command fell heavily on Horus. Some of his brothers, like Rogel Dorn and Sanguinius, supported him with loyalty and love. Others, like the bitter Primarch Lorgar or the scheming Erebus of the Word-Bearers, saw opportunity. Unbeknownst to the Imperium, whispers of chaos had started to curl like smoke around the edges of the Primarchs' hearts. The ruinous powers of the warp, ever patient, had found cracks in the Emperor's grand design. The Horus heresy, brother against brother. It began as a whisper and ended in fire. Years into Horus's command, the unthinkable happened. The Emperor's favored son, the War Master himself, fell under the corruption of chaos. What poisonous seed took root in Horus's soul? Perhaps jealousy that his father had left him such burden. Perhaps the insidious lies of chaos promising a brighter empire with Horus as master. Legends tell that Horus was wounded by a cursed blade on the moon of Davin, an injury as much to his spirit as his flesh. In fevered visions, dark entities offered him visions of a new order, where he, not the Emperor, would rule, and mankind would be free of the Emperor's tyranny. In the end, Horus gave in to ambition and despair. The beloved War Master, once a paragon of nobility, was twisted into the arch-traitor, his loyalty to the Emperor replaced with burning hatred. Horus's treachery did not remain his alone. It spread like a malign fever through the legions. Of the 18 known Primarchs, fully half turned against the Emperor and sided with Horus's rebellion. These were the dark times when brother fought brother. Some traitor Primarchs had long chafed under the Emperor's ideals. Angron of the World Eaters, with his barely restrained fury, Fulgrim of the Emperor's children, tempted by decadent perfection, Mortarion of the Death Guard promised escape from mortality. Others fell through deceit or tragic miscalculation, but whatever the cause, 9 Primarchs and their Space Marine legions betrayed the Imperium and embraced the Dark Gods. They painted their once proud armor in blasphemous hues and carried banners of heresy. Horus, naming himself the true Emperor, marshaled these forces in secret, preparing to strike at the heart of the Imperium. For the Loyalist legions, the realization was heartbreaking. News came sporadically at first. An inexplicable atrocity on Istvan III, where Horus purged those in his own ranks still loyal to Terra. Then the pitched battles on Istvan V, where loyalist forces sent to stop Horus were themselves betrayed in the infamous Drop Site Massacre on the black sands of that world. 3 legions, Iron Hands, Salamanders, Raven Guard, were nearly annihilated by the unexpected betrayal of those who fought beside them. Imagine the horror as the trap was sprung. Once allied legions opening fire point blank, battle brothers mowing down battle brothers in a storm of bolter fire and plasma. The air rang with a cacophony of bolter shells and Chainsword screams, and above it all the anguished cries of betrayed warriors. The Drop Site Massacre was the first overt cry of the Horus heresy, a civil war that would engulf the galaxy. Over the next several years, war spread everywhere. The Imperium itself seemed to shudder with grief as planets burned and suns were extinguished in fratricidal conflict. Astartes fought Astartes with unrelenting fury. The iron-blooded Iron Warriors besieged fortress after fortress held by their former brothers. The Night Lords terrorized entire star systems, reveling in slaughter. The Word-bearers spread the fires of heresy, corrupting populations in fell worship. The loyalist legions that remained true did all they could to stem the tide. The Ultramarines, far to the galactic east, battled a massive warp-borne storm and hordes of demons unleashed by the traitor Word-bearers, unable to reach Terra in time. The Dark Angels and Space Wolves each fought desperate campaigns on the fringes as chaos sought to divide and isolate the Emperor's protectors. Communication was erratic, often cut off by warp storms conjured by the enemy. In this chaos, Horus's forces drove inexorably toward Terra, the throne world, believing that victory would be achieved if the Emperor could be struck down in the heart of his Imperium. Throughout this grim march, the Emperor remained upon Terra, laboring intensely on his secret Webway project and coordinating defense. One might imagine him sitting upon the Golden Throne's mechanism, not yet a life support, but a psychic seat for the Webway portal. Golden light washing over a face etched with concern. Around him were his loyal advisors, Malkador the Sigillite, the robed ancient with wise eyes, and Primarchs like Rogel Dorn, who had rushed back to Terra to organize its defenses. The Emperor's heart must have ached with each report of another son's betrayal. In those quiet moments, perhaps he whispered the names of his wayward children, Fulgrim, Kurza, Angron, Horus, in tones of sorrow, pondering how all his carefully wrought dreams had come to this terrible pass. The siege of Terra and the angels' sacrifice. At last, the traitors reached solar orbit. Thus began the siege of Terra, the apocalyptic final act of the heresy. The skies of the throne world, once azure and gentle, were choked with the contrails of drop pods and the black smoke of orbital bombardments. Horus's armada besieged Terra on all sides, a ring of iron and corruption. On the blasted plains outside the Imperial Palace, countless legions of chaos-worshipping troops gathered. The twisted traitor legions, alongside regiments of turncoat Imperial army, gibbering chaos cultists, and towering traitor titans. They came on in waves of fanaticism and hatred, determined to tear down the seat of the Emperor. Terra became a hellscape of battle, its once magnificent cities reduced to rubble under constant shelling. Against this tide stood the resolute loyalists. Behind the high walls and energy shields of the Imperial Palace, the last loyal legions prepared for the fight of their lives. Yellow-armored Imperial fists manned the battlements under Primarch Rogel Dorn's stoic command. White Scar's warriors darted out from gates on lightning-fast jet bikes to harass the besiegers, their Primarch Jagatai Khan a whirlwind on the battlefield. Most fatefully, the Blood Angels, led by the angelic Primarch Sanguinius, held the inner defenses and the ultimate gate to the palace. Sanguinius, a radiant figure with great angelic wings, moved among his men with inspiring calm. In whispered prayers, he assured them that the Emperor was with them and that they stood as humanity's bulwark on this darkest day. For 55 days, the earth shook with the fury of conflict. The traitors assaulted again and again, and the loyalists bled to hold them back. The palace's outer works fell one by one under relentless bombardment, and the demonic rage of engines like the god machines of chaos. Still, the defenders did not yield. In the soot-stained corridors of the palace, amidst shattered statues of ancient heroes, space marines, and Imperial army units made last stands that became legend. Even the common people of Terra, once terrified refugees, took up arms in militia forces to defend the sanctity of the Emperor's home. At the forefront, everywhere, was Sanguinius, the Angel of Baal, his presence a beacon of hope. In one famous moment at the Eternity Gate, the ultimate inner gate before the Emperor's throne room, Sanguinius stood alone atop the rampart as a howling bloodthirster of chaos. The greater demon, Kabanda, a monster of blood and hate, leapt at him. Despite being weary from days of fighting, Sanguinius met the creature in midair with a sword of burning blue power. He wrestled the demon in a furious duel, witnessed by defenders and attackers alike. With a final cry to the Emperor, Sanguinius broke the demon's back and hurled it down from the wall, banishing it, howling back into the warp. A cheer rose up from the hard-pressed defenders. The angel still prevailed, an embodiment of the Emperor's light, though Sanguinius would never speak of it. Each victory cost him dearly. Visions of doom pressed at the edges of his mind, and he harbored a sorrowful certainty that he would not survive this war. Despite heroic moments such as these, the odds were growing ever more grim. The traitors had virtually surrounded the palace, and traitor titans strode across the plain, their weapons pounding incessantly. The once ivory palace walls were cracked and blackened. By the end of the siege's first month, the outermost defenses lay in ruins, and the attackers had breached portions of the inner wall. Sanguinius and the Blood Angels became the fire brigade of Terra, flying on wings of gold wherever the line was about to break, driving back the foe time and again. But even an angel can tire. Sanguinius grew weary, his armor dented, his noble features lined with battle fury and fatigue. He lost brothers and friends with each passing hour. The pain of his legion's losses weighed on him, but he bore it without complaint, offering only encouragement to his surviving men. Eventually, Horus grew impatient. The defenses of Terra, though crumbling, had not fallen quickly enough. Perhaps some sliver of Horus's old pride was frustrated by the tenacity of those he once called brothers. In any case, Horus made a fateful decision. He chose to lower the void shields on his flagship, the Vengeful Spirit, inviting the Emperor to face him directly. It was a bold gambit, for Horus knew that if he could lure the Emperor into single combat and slay him, the Imperium's heart would be cut out in an instant. Conversely, Horus risked being confronted with the full fury of the Master of Mankind. Still, so confident was Horus in his newfound dark power that he threw this challenge like a gauntlet at the Emperor's feet. In the command sanctum deep within the Imperial Palace, sensors flickered as they caught the sudden flicker of Horus's shields dropping. Rogel, Dorn, and Sanguinius realized what it meant at once. The Emperor, upon hearing the news, went very quiet. Those present say a look of profound sadness crossed his face, as if in that moment he knew with certainty what must be done. The Emperor accepted Horus's challenge. Gathering a small retinue of his most elite, he prepared to teleport to the Vengeful Spirit and end the heresy in one stroke. He chose as companions the indomitable Dorn, the loyal Sanguinius, and a cadre of Terminator-armored Imperial fists and Blood Angels, veterans. The Emperor's own Adeptus Custodes, his golden-armored guardians, also joined the assault, determined to defend their lord to the last. Before departing, the Emperor entrusted Malkador with a final task: to sit upon the golden throne in his absence, keeping the warp portal contained. In a soft exchange of brotherly love, he thanked Malkador for his lifelong service. The old man nodded, fully aware that the strain would likely consume him. This done, the Emperor and his strike team gathered around a golden teleport, Homer amid the broken marble of the palace's inner sanctum. A blinding flash followed, and they were gone, hurled through the Imperium onto Horus's battle barge. Aboard the vengeful spirit, the final act unfolded. Horus, empowered by chaos beyond anything mortal, had expected the Emperor's arrival. He used foul sorcery to scatter the Emperor's companions throughout the colossal ship. Each loyal warrior materialized far apart, forced to battle knots of demons and traitor marines prowling the corrupted corridors. The Emperor himself strode grimly toward the ship's bridge, lightning claw crackling in one hand and the other hand wreathed in psychic flame. By his side for a time was Sanguinius. The Primarch's innate nobility and psychic aura allowed him to resist Horus's scattering spell better than most. Thus, Sanguinius alone reached the final confrontation ahead of the Emperor. On the battle barge's bridge, beneath shattered hololith displays and flickering red alarms, Sanguinius faced Horus. The War Master loomed tall in Baroque black Terminator armor, wolf-headed and needle-spiked, his once handsome face distorted with malice. Horus greeted Sanguinius, not with immediate violence, but with an outstretched hand and a silken tongue. He attempted one last time to seduce his brother to join chaos. Horus spoke of freedom from the Emperor's control, of a new galaxy where the Primarchs would rule as gods. He appealed to their ancient bond. Sanguinius had been one of Horus's closest friends among the brothers, trying to sway the angelic Primarch to his side. One imagines Sanguinius listening in sorrow, tears perhaps welling in his bright eyes, for he loved Horus dearly, like a brother, and could see how far he had fallen. Sanguinius refused calmly but firmly, declaring he would not betray the father or humanity. Horus's face twisted in rage at the rejection. With a howl of hatred, the War Master attacked. Sanguinius, already fatigued and wounded from the long defense of Terra and his duel with Kabanda, fought valiantly, but he was no match for Horus, now swollen with the raw power of chaos. The battle was short and heartbreaking. Those few surviving accounts speak of Sanguinius managing a swift strike that cracked Horus's armor at the chest, chipping away the serpentine scales of the War Master's suit. This small rent in Horus's armor would later prove crucial. Infuriated and without mercy, Horus seized Sanguinius by the throat. The Blood Angel's Primarch, wings broken and armor shattered, still met Horus's gaze with sorrow and defiance. With an awful crunch, Horus broke Sanguinius's body, lifting the angel and strangling the life from him. Thus died Sanguinius, the purest of souls, giving his last breath to defy the madness that had consumed his brother. In that final moment, some say Sanguinius foresaw 1,000,000 tragic futures for his sons and accepted it all as the price of loyalty. His broken body fell to the deck like a fallen angel, blood staining the steel floor. It was at this climactic point that the Emperor arrived on the bridge. There before him lay Sanguinius's lifeless form, wings outstretched and still, and standing over it was Horus, the sun who had once been the brightest star in his firmament. The Emperor gazed at his fallen angel son, and an indescribable grief filled his ancient heart. In that silence, Horus laughed, a cruel, mocking laugh that echoed in the cavernous bridge. Horus's eyes glowed with malice as he taunted the Emperor, calling him a fool for clinging to humanity and refusing the godlike power of chaos. Horus sneered that if the Emperor would only kneel to him, he might spare his life. The War Master's voice was harsh, layered with demonic resonance, utterly devoid of the warmth it once held. The Emperor stood very still, clad in resplendent gold, radiant even in sorrow. He quietly replied to Horus. He called Horus deluded, a slave to chaos rather than its master. In that moment, the Emperor still hoped to reach Horus, to see if a fragment of his son's soul remained uncorrupted. But Horus's response was a snarl of hate. With a roar, the War Master unleashed a storm of warp lightning from his clawed gauntlet. The Emperor raised his hand and nullified the psychic onslaught, sparks skittering off an invisible shield. It was clear. Words were exhausted. Now only fate would speak through blade and will. Thus began the final duel, a confrontation both physical and psychic, fought on multiple planes of reality, father and son. Once the two mightiest heroes of mankind now clashed with a fury that shook the battle barge itself. They traded blows that could sunder mountains. The Emperor wielded a gleaming power sword and the immense might of his mind. Horus struck with crackling lightning claws and dark sorceries, trailing warp fire. Even as they fought, psychic shockwaves rippled outward, causing lesser beings across Terra to drop to their knees in pain or ecstasy. Though the Emperor was the greatest single power in the galaxy, he faced a horrific dilemma. He was reluctant to destroy his son. Every strike he made, he held back ever so slightly, hoping perhaps to see regret or doubt in Horus's face. Horus, however, had no such restraint. He fought with the savage joy of chaos. Each swing of his claw meant to kill. In the span of a few brutal moments, Horus wounded the Emperor terribly. The Emperor's armor was rent. Blood stained the golden aquila on his chest. The Emperor's mighty sword fell from a hand, suddenly limp, tendons severed by a wicked slash. Horus seized the opening and with inhuman strength lifted the Emperor and broke his back over his knee. A psychic blast from Horus then flayed the flesh from the Emperor's face, destroying one of his eyes. The master of mankind, racked by pain and heartbreak, collapsed to the ground, paralyzed and grievously hurt. As the Emperor lay on the brink of defeat, a lone figure charged onto the bridge. In some accounts, it is a loyal Adeptus Custodes. In others, the bravest of ordinary men, a mere Imperial army soldier named Elanius Pius. Whoever he was, this warrior interposed himself between Horus and the Emperor's shattered form. Horus snarled in amusement at the interruption. The War Master, gloating and drenched in blood, casually unleashed a wave of dark power that disintegrated the loyal warrior where he stood. The brave soul was turned to ash in an instant, but his selfless act was not in vain. Seeing this wanton cruelty, this final proof of Horus's utter corruption, the Emperor's mind at last cleared. In that crystallized moment of time, the Emperor realized that Horus was truly lost. The son he had loved so dearly was gone. In his place stood a creature of chaos, wearing Horus's face. The Emperor's pain and hesitation fell away, replaced by a perfect clarity of purpose. With his remaining strength, both physical and psychic, the Emperor mustered the totality of his power. A sorrowful resolve filled him. He would save Horus's soul and end the threat to humanity in one decisive act. The Emperor's one still good eye met Horus's hateful glare. Perhaps for just a heartbeat, Horus saw in that gaze the boundless love and sadness of a father forced to destroy his child. Then the Emperor unleashed a torrent of pure psychic energy, brighter than 1,000 suns. He channeled it through the chink Sanguinius had made in Horus's armor, the lance of divine power piercing the War Master's defenses. The blast caught Horus full in the chest. It burned through layers of ceramite and flesh, straight to the core of his being. Horus's eyes widened in shock as the chaos entities within him were incinerated in a heartbeat. For a brief moment, the true Horus, the War Master as he had been, proud and noble, surfaced, freed from the corruption. With horror, he realized the depths of atrocity he had committed. As his life faded, a single tear rolled down Horus's cheek. In a fractured, pleading voice, he begged the Emperor's forgiveness. The Emperor heard his son's true voice at last, and saw genuine remorse in Horus's failing eyes. For an instant, the Emperor hesitated. Forgiveness swelled in his mighty heart. He was ready to take Horus in his arms. But the Emperor also sensed the dark gods hovering, already poised to drag Horus's soul back into damnation and perhaps even reanimate his body if given the chance. In that painful clarity, the Emperor knew what he must do. With tears of blood and compassion turned to steel, he summoned a final surge of power, driving out all love from his mind. For just that flicker in time, he released a second blast of unimaginable force. It struck Horus, and this time annihilated him, body, mind, and very soul. The War Master's atoms were scattered to the solar winds, his soul utterly erased, so that chaos could never make him a thrall prince. Horus Lupercal, favored son turned arch-traitor, was no more. The psychic shockwave of Horus's destruction billowed across Terra and the entire Sol system. Demons were banished in an instant, and every remaining traitor on Terra felt a jolt of fear. The Chaos Gods themselves roared in anger at the loss of their champion. On the ground, the attacking forces faltered, their dark fervor wavering. The siege of Terra was broken at that moment. The heretics began to retreat in disarray, but victory came at a terrible cost. The Emperor's mortal form had been shattered in the battle. With Horus's death, the Emperor's titanic will kept him alive just long enough to complete the task. Loyalist reinforcements, the Ultramarines and Dark Angels, arriving too late to fight, would eventually drive the traitors from Terra entirely during the scouring years that followed. Yet, for the Emperor, there would be no triumphal celebration, only unending sacrifice. Rogel Dorn finally burst onto the bridge of the vengeful spirit, having cut his way through, only to find a scene of tragedy. Horus's charred remains, what little was left of him, and the Emperor's broken body lying beside Sanguinius's lifeless form. We can scarcely imagine Dorn's anguish as he gently lifted the Emperor, barely clinging to life, and carried him back to the surface of Terra. The Emperor's last sacrifice. Back in the Imperial Palace, urgent preparations saved humanity's future. At the Emperor's instruction, Dorn and the Emperor's attendants urgently installed him upon the life-sustaining device that had been prepared, the Golden Throne. This majestic mechanism, originally built as part of the Emperor's secret project, now became his glittering tomb. With solemn haste, the Emperor's broken body was attached to golden cybernetic conduits and psychoreactive circuits. As they activated the throne, a brilliant golden light enveloped the Emperor, In his final lucid moment, the Emperor used the last of his power to impart a few soft-spoken commands. He urged his loyal followers to continue the fight, to protect humanity, and to remember him not as a god, but as a man who gave everything for them. Then his physical voice fell silent. The Emperor of mankind, savior of humanity, became eternally bound to the golden throne, alive yet no longer truly living. His mind flared into the Imperium, becoming the Astronomicon, a great psychic beacon to guide his people's ships through the warp. But his body remained in stasis, a withered, lifeless husk sustained only by the arcane machinery and the daily sacrifice of 1,000 psyker souls. In this way, the Emperor continues to watch over mankind, a silent, divine presence seated upon the golden throne for 10,000 years since the Horus Heresy, the most tragic civil war in human history, thus ended in both victory and heartbreak. Horus was defeated, chaos was driven back, but the golden age of the Imperium ended. In its place came an era of rebuilding amid ruin, an Imperium now bereft of the Emperor's guiding hand, save for the distant glow of his spirit and example. The scars of that civil war were deep. The traitor Primarchs and their surviving followers fled into the Eye of Terror, a permanent warp rift, to escape vengeance. There they would remain, nursing hatred for millennia to come. Loyalist forces across the galaxy rallied and purged the last heretical elements in a great campaign known as the Scouring, hunting the traitors to the fringes of the galaxy. The Imperium had survived its gravest crisis, but it would never be the same. No longer was it a dynamic, optimistic realm led by an immortal visionary. Instead, it became a besieged fortress civilization, clinging to the faith that the Emperor, now worshipped by many as a living god, would forever shield them from the darkness. The thunderous heart of the Imperium fell quiet, replaced by the gentle, endless hum of the golden throne. In the wake of the heresy, the burden of leadership fell to the remaining loyal Primarchs, notably the wise Robut Guilliman of the Ultramarines. Guilliman saw that changes were needed to prevent any single individual from ever wielding the Imperium's full military might again. Thus he authored the Codex Astartes, a tome of strict guidance and structure for the Space Marines, and decreed the breaking up of the old legions. This event, called the Second Founding, divided the surviving Space Marine legions into smaller, autonomous chapters, each nominally 1,000 warriors strong. Never again, Guilliman wrote, shall the strength of a legion be in the hands of one man, lest ambition or treachery bring ruin. The Ultramarines Legion itself split into numerous chapters, and so did the others. Some Primarchs resisted this change initially. Loyal but proud leaders like Leman Russ of the Space Wolves or Rogel Dorn felt their honor slighted, yet even they ultimately accepted the wisdom of Guilliman's reforms for the good of humanity. In this time of reformation and healing, known as the Great Scouring and the dawn of the Age of the Imperium, many new chapters were born. They took on new names, new heraldry, and set forth to defend the stars, carrying the legacy of the legions in altered form. 4 of the most famous and storied among these loyalist chapters are the Blood Angels, Dark Angels, Space Wolves, and Ultramarines. Each carries echoes of a Primarch saga, the pain and glory of the heresy, and each has watched over humanity through the long millennia with unwavering vigilance. Let us now explore these chapters in turn, in gentle detail, as one might examine the facets of a precious jewel, turning it slowly in soft candlelight. The Blood Angels. They are the angels of death and of salvation, noble in appearance, yet bearing a tragic curse. The Blood Angels chapter descends from the Primarch Sanguinius, the beloved angel who gave his life on Horus's flagship. To the common citizens of the Imperium, the Blood Angels are figures of awe and reverence. One can picture the stained glass mosaics on distant shrine worlds, golden armored warriors with scarlet teardrop crests, haloed by painted angel wings, their visages serene and beatific. The chapter's heroes are celebrated across 1,000,000 worlds. Their portraits adorn Gothic cathedrals and illuminated holy texts. They appear as avenging angels in imperial lore, bringing swift deliverance from the enemies of mankind. Yet behind their angelic appearance lies the burden of a curse born since the Horus heresy, when Sanguinius fell to Horus's hand. An inexplicable psychic shock rippled through the gene seed of all his sons. From that day forth, every Blood Angel carries a shard of their Primarch's final agony. They experience haunting visions of Sanguinius's last stand, the moment of his death growing stronger and more frequent as centuries pass. Imagine a Blood Angel veteran, ancient and respected, pausing in the quiet of a fortress hall. Suddenly his eyes glaze over and he trembles, reliving that terrible scene aboard the Vengeful Spirit, feeling the War Master's claws at his throat. This affliction is called the Black Rage. Eventually, each Blood Angel who lives long enough succumbs to this madness, believing himself to be Sanguinius at the Siege of Terra, battling phantoms of Horus in an endless loop. Those overcome by the Black Rage, often with a roar of sorrow and fury, are taken in by the chapter's chaplains to form the Death Company, who fight in their hallucination-fueled frenzy until death finally claims them in battle. Despite this grim fate hanging over them, the Blood Angels do not despair. In fact, the knowledge of their own eventual fall inspires them to even greater heights of valor and selflessness. They strive to achieve perfection and glory before the curse takes them. On the battlefield, the Blood Angels are renowned for their furious assaults and poetic ferocity. They descend from the skies via jump packs like a host of wrathful seraphim, bolters flaring and chainswords revving, often literally with wings. The Sanguinary Guard, an elite cadre, wear golden winged jump pack armor in honor of Sanguinius. The chapter excels at aerial deployment and close combat. Their assaults, an elegant yet savage ballet of death. This preference is not mere tactics, but seemingly tied to their bloodline. The Blood Angels feel a pull towards the red haze of hand-to-hand combat, what they call the Red Thirst, a near vampiric bloodlust that they must constantly keep in check. Many of them practice fine arts, music, and painting in their quieter hours, seeking beauty and spiritual fulfillment as a counterbalance to the violence in their souls. It is said that among their ranks are poets and artisans without peer, and their fortress monastery is decorated with masterful frescoes and sculptures crafted by the Space Marines themselves. Such pursuits keep them noble, tempering the beast within. Ceremonially, the Blood Angels honor their Primarch's memory in all things. Their chapter cult holds Sanguinius as a martyred angel figure who intercedes for them with the God Emperor. In their chapels, one finds relics like the Red Grail, said to contain a portion of Sanguinius's blood, from which new brothers symbolically drink to affirm their bond. Every Blood Angel's heart aches with reverence and loss for their winged father. This is both their sadness and their source of pride and unity. On the eve of battle, they gather in dimly lit sanctuaries, crimson robes over their armor, and chant the odes of Sanguinius in low, melodic voices. They remind themselves that Sanguinius met death with a sorrowful smile and unyielding courage, and they vow to do the same. It is often remarked that the Blood Angels have fought for 10,000 years with a beautiful, melancholic grace, never succumbing to despair or the whispers of chaos that prey on their inner darkness. They remain, as a chapter, pure and noble despite their curse, an enduring testament to Sanguinius's virtue. On their homeworld of Baal, a radiation-scorched planet of red sands and black rocks, the Blood Angels maintain their fortress monastery. It rises out of the blood-red deserts like a towering citadel of ivory and brass. In its great hall, illuminated by stained glass depictions of Sanguinius's glorious deeds, the chapter gathers for feasts and councils. Veteran brothers with long alabaster hair and patrician features sit alongside fresh initiates whose canine fangs, a minor gene seed trait, hint at the thirst they must control. Chapter serfs, mortals sworn to serve the Space Marines, carry platters of synthesized blood wine and high-protein meats from Baal's mutant wildlife. A Blood Angel's feast is a solemn ritual of remembrance. Toasts are raised to the Emperor and Sanguinius, but excess and rowdiness are eschewed in favor of refined camaraderie. In many ways, the Blood Angels mirror the artist soldiers of an older age, cultured, elegant, yet utterly lethal when provoked. They will fight with chainsword and bolt pistol in one moment, then paint a serene mural or compose a requiem for fallen comrades in the next. New recruits for the chapter are drawn from the nomadic tribespeople of Baal's moons, hardy youths, who are first tempered in trials of survival across Baal's radioactive deserts. Those who survive aspirant trials drink from the Reclusium's chalice in a symbolic act and receive Sanguinius's gene seed, transforming them over time into angelic giants. The transformation is arduous. Many do not survive, but those who emerge as full battle brothers are the paragons of physical perfection, tall, strong, with strikingly patrician faces, yet eyes that hold an ancient sadness. These Blood Angels live far longer than most Space Marines, sometimes over a millennium, which means every brother has many decades to hone his skills and pursue artistic passions. It also means more time dreading the creeping onset of the Black Rage. Every Blood Angel knows that one day in battle something may snap in his soul and he will be lost to madness. This lends a poignant, tragic heroism to their every deed. They strive for excellence and glorious self-sacrifice, hoping to fall in a blaze of honor before the curse claims their minds. When the Blood Angels deploy to war, it is often preceded by an almost ceremonial stillness. Picture a strike cruiser in orbit above a war zone. In the arming chambers, Blood Angels warriors kneel as chaplains clad in black armor move among them, murmuring the litanies of blood. The chaplain's voice is deep and soothing, reminding the brethren of Sanguinius's courage and the Emperor's light. The warriors respond in unison, "By the blood of our Lord we shall prevail." Each Marine then dons his helmet. Some have death masks sculpted in the likeness of Sanguinius's face, so that on the field their foes see not a mortal, but the visage of an avenging angel. Then comes the thunder of jump packs and the scream of descent. The Blood Angels strike hard and fast as a surgeon's blade, and should they be victorious, Afterward, they will gather their fallen, especially any who succumbed to the Black Rage and fought their last in the Death Company, and inter them with honors. In mournful chants, they will remember those brothers, celebrating that for a brief while they bore the aspect of Sanguinius in his final moments, and thereby expiated a bit of the chapter's undying grief. In summary, the Blood Angels are a chapter of contrasts. On the surface, angelic warriors famed for nobility, art, and valor, beneath afflicted souls wrestling with darkness and loss. Their tale is one of sublime tragedy, yet also of inspiration. For 10,000 years of unsullied service despite inner demons. To this day, countless Imperial citizens look to the Blood Angels as figures of hope. When the skies darken with Xeno Swarm or Traitor Legion, the common folk pray to the Emperor that the angels of Baal will come, descending in fire and wrath, beautiful and terrifying, to save them. And more often than not, the Blood Angels do indeed arrive with bolters singing and chainswords roaring, living up to their legend as the Emperor's avenging angels. Even now, some say Sanguinius's spirit watches over them in the quiet of their chapels as incense smoke curls in sunbeams through stained glass. A Blood Angel might feel a feather-light touch on his pauldron and know that the angelic Primarch stands with him still, proud and protective. The Dark Angels. Brooding, secretive knights in monastic robes, the Dark Angels guard a secret sorrow that has shadowed them since the heresy. They are the first of the Space Marine legions, the storied I Legion, and their Primarch was Lionel Johnson, the Lord of Caliban. To many in the Imperium, the Dark Angels chapter is enigmatic and aloof. They appear without warning to fight where the need is greatest, clad in dark green power armor marked by a winged sword emblem. They speak little to outsiders, often fighting in silence or responding to allied commanders with curt, formal acknowledgments. When victory is won, the Dark Angels just as swiftly depart, declining parades or thanks, vanishing like ghosts into the void. Their unwillingness to explain themselves has earned them a reputation as mysterious and unapproachable. Still, none doubt their loyalty or effectiveness, for the Dark Angels have won countless battles and saved innumerable worlds across the last 10,000 years. They fight with disciplined fury, exemplifying the ideal of the Emperor's elite, while eschewing glory or adulation that others might welcome. To understand the Dark Angels, one must glimpse their inner nature as warrior monks. They operate much like a knightly order from ancient days. In their colossal mobile fortress monastery, the Rock, the Dark Angels maintain a cloistered, ritualistic lifestyle. The Rock itself is legendary, a chunk of their destroyed homeworld Caliban, fitted with warp engines. It drifts through space, carrying the chapter's headquarters. Deep within its adamantium halls lies the Chamber of Secrets, and countless chapels lit by candles, where robed Dark Angels offer prayers to the Emperor. The chapter has many levels of initiation, and with each level, a Dark Angel is entrusted with more knowledge of the chapter's hidden history. This creates a hierarchy of secrecy. Low-ranking battle brothers know only that theirs is a proud old chapter. Higher-ranking veterans know something went terribly wrong on Caliban at the end of the heresy. Only the elite inner circle of the chapter, masters, chaplains, and a few others, know the full, shattering truth of the chapter's past. And that truth is their secret shame. At the climax of the Horus heresy, half the Dark Angels Legion turned traitor when Lionel Johnson returned to his homeworld Caliban after the heresy. He found that his trusted friend and second in command, Luther, had fallen to chaos and led many Dark Angels astray. A horrific battle ensued between the loyal Dark Angels and these traitors, later known as the Fallen Angels. In the Cataclysm, Caliban itself was destroyed, shattered by orbital fire, and the rift in reality flung many of the surviving traitors through space and time. The Primarch Lion L. Johnson vanished in the aftermath. Legend holds that he lies in a deathless sleep deep within the rock, awaiting a time of return. The loyal Dark Angels that remained were racked with guilt. Their legion's honor had been sullied by treachery from within, and they were determined to expunge this stain at any cost. Thus, the Dark Angels and their successor chapters, collectively called the Unforgiven, took on a secret mission that overrides all others, to hunt down every one of the fallen and either force them to repent or silence them forever. Only by doing so do they believe they can atone for the Legion's ancient sin and earn the Emperor's absolution. This mission explains much of the Dark Angels' behavior. They trust no one outside their chapter with their secret, not even the Imperial authorities or other Space Marines. When circumstances bring a chance to capture a rumored fallen angel, for instance, a traitor Marine from Caliban's time appearing, the Dark Angels will abruptly change their priorities, sometimes withdrawing from a larger campaign or acting in ways inexplicable to allies, all to pursue that one goal. To outsiders, these actions can seem capricious or even disloyal, but in truth, the Dark Angels are following a deeply held vow that only they comprehend. Within the chapter, silence and discipline are absolute. A battle brother knows to obey without question, even if ordered to take prisoners or pursue objectives that seem odd. Over years, if he proves himself trustworthy and valorous, he might be inducted into the next circle of knowledge. Picture a veteran Dark Angel sergeant kneeling in a dark chapel, illuminated by a single candle, as an interrogator chaplain in skull-visaged helm intones, "You are ready, brother, to bear our chapter's burden." Perhaps then he learns that some brothers betrayed them long ago. Much later, if he attains the rank of Deathwing Knight or Company Master, he learns that those traitors yet live and must be hunted. At each revelation, the Marine's resolve is tested and reforged. By the time a Dark Angel joins the inner circle, he is utterly committed to the secret cause of the chapter, willing to do anything to capture or kill the fallen and never speak of it to anyone without clearance. The aesthetic and culture of the Dark Angels reflects this clandestine monk knight character. They wear long robes over their armor, hoods shadowing their faces. Many carry large tome-like lockets containing scripture, litanies, or lists of names of those who fell on Caliban. In their fortress, hymns echo at prescribed hours. The chapter's Grand Master, Chapter Master, is titled the Supreme Grand Master, currently Azrael, and he carries an ancient relic known as the Lion Helm. Interrogator chaplains, garbed in black and bone vestments, serve as both spiritual guides and inquisitors who extract confessions from captured fallen angels in the depths of the rock's dungeons. These somber rituals are unknown to the rest of the Imperium. All that outsiders witness is that the Dark Angels have an uncanny drive when facing certain Chaos Space Marines. They fight with particular wrath against those who might be their former kin. If a Chaos renegade of the fallen is suspected to be on a planet, the Dark Angels will go to extreme lengths, even subterfuge or deception of fellow Imperial forces, to secure that individual for themselves. They then take the captive to the rock, and none outside the chapter ever see that prisoner again. It is whispered among some inquisitors that the Dark Angels run a private, secret prison, but none have ever proven it. The Dark Angels' stoic reputation has fortunately kept prying eyes at bay. Their record shows them as loyal and effective, if taciturn, servants of the Emperor. In battle, the Dark Angels are methodical and relentless. They favor a combined arms approach honed over millennia. Notably, they field two unique specialist formations reflecting their old Legion organization, the Deathwing and the Ravenwing. The Deathwing is their first company, composed solely of bone-white Terminator armored veterans. These are often the inner circle members who know the full truth. Their Terminator armor is painted ivory in remembrance of a long-ago hero and to symbolize the purity of death and perhaps penance. The Deathwing fights as indomitable heavy infantry, teleporting into the fiercest fighting. Meanwhile, the Ravenwing, the second company, fights as a fast strike force, all in black armor, riding bikes, land speeders, and aircraft. They are the masters of rapid pursuit, which is key to the chapter's hunt for the fallen, swiftly encircling and capturing elusive targets. The Ravenwing's black armor is said to honor the darkness of secrecy and the memory of Caliban's fallen forests. When the Dark Angels make war, their approach is akin to a nightly hunt. First, recon and intelligence, often via the Ravenwing, to flush out the foe. Next, rapid strikes to isolate enemy leaders or important targets. Finally, when the foe is on the back foot, the Deathwing teleports in to deliver the killing blow or capture key figures. All of this is executed with quiet professionalism. A Vox exchange during a Dark Angels operation might be nothing more than measured phrases. Objective secured. By the Lion, advance. They do not boast or issue war cries often. They let their actions speak. However, they do have a war cry reserved for moments of extreme fervor. For the Lion, for the Emperor, a reference to their Primarch and the Master of Mankind. Hearing normally reserved Dark Angels roar these words as they charge can send chills through allies and enemies alike. Despite their secretive nature, the Dark Angels remain unquestionably loyal to the Emperor. They are deeply pious in their own way. The Emperor is the one figure they revere above even the Lion. In their litanies, they often refer to the Emperor as the all-seeing or the guiding light, and to the Lion as the first or the Primarch. Every victory they achieve for the Imperium, they dedicate quietly to the Emperor's glory, and perhaps as an attempt to drown out the inner shame they carry. Their librarians, psychers, maintain a tradition of keeping the names of all known fallen in a secret archive. Each time one is redeemed or slain, they strike that name from the record with a sanctified quill. It is said that Supreme Grandmaster Azrael prays each night in solitude for forgiveness for the chapter, in hopes that when the tally of the fallen is finally complete, the Emperor will give a sign of absolution. Life as a Dark Angel on the rock is one of discipline and introspection. Acolyte brothers spend hours in meditation inside rune-etched cells, reflecting on lessons of loyalty and the consequences of sin. Sparring practice often takes the form of ritualized sword duels in the training cages, overseen by hooded instructors who time each strike to chance. The halls of the rock are lit by torch and censer globe, giving an ambiance of medieval cloisters fused with high technology. Though a starship fortress, many areas resemble an old stone monastery, complete with gargoyle statues and chapels. The Dark Angels keep many relics, broken shards of Caliban's fortress, the lion sword, their Primarch's blade, said to be awaiting his return, and dusty tomes handwritten by the lion himself. All these are carefully tended by chapter serfs in silence. Outsiders rarely, if ever, set foot on the rock, but those who do, maybe a tech priest for essential maintenance, describe the atmosphere as heavy with tradition, as if the weight of 10,000 years of penance hangs in the air. In sum, the Dark Angels are dark knights, forever on a quest to right an ancient wrong. Their heroism in battle is unquestioned. They have saved worlds from hive fleets, demons, and worse. Yet they refuse accolades. They are often the first to arrive and last to leave a war zone, but among the first to fade back into the shadows once the war is done. Many Imperial commanders find them frustratingly taciturn allies, but none can deny the results they deliver. And in quiet moments around regimental campfires, guardsmen share rumors. Why did the Dark Angel commander abruptly abandon the front to chase a single figure into the ruins? Why do they wear those mournful robes? What do they seek? The answers remain locked behind the stern visages of the Dark Angels themselves. Only one thing is clear to all. The Dark Angels are haunted by something, and they will not rest easy until that ghost is laid to final rest. They fight not just the enemies without, but the demons of guilt within their own hearts. Such is their eternal penance and dedication. Yet, despite this gloom, there is a nobility to the Dark Angels' plight. They embody redemption. In each act of valor, each life saved in the Emperor's name, they chip away at the burden of the past. And should the day come, as some in the inner circle whisper in hope, that the lion himself returns to lead them, perhaps the chapter will finally forgive itself. Until then, the Dark Angels remain ever vigilant, ever dutiful, the watchers in the dark, as their nickname goes, standing guard over the Imperium's realms. If, from a slight distance, in the grand tapestry of the Adeptus Astartes, they are the silent sentinels, their capes fluttering in twilight, endlessly reciting litanies of absolution and loyalty that only they can hear. The Space Wolves. Fierce as a winter storm, yet fiercely loyal, the Space Wolves are the Emperor's barbarians, honorable warriors with the hearts of wolves. Hailing from the deadly ice world of Fenris, the Space Wolves chapter, once the 6th Legion, is unlike any other, where many chapters affect monastic reserve. The Space Wolves are boisterous and bold, carrying a feral joy into battle and life. They call themselves the Vilca Fenrica, meaning wolves of Fenris in their tribal tongue. To them, the Emperor is the Allfather, and their Primarch, Leman Russ, is the Allfather's greatest champion, a wolf king whose legend they strive to uphold. Fenris, their home, is a world of fire and ice, lethal in its extremes. For much of its year, Fenris is locked in icy darkness, its seas frozen, its people huddled in frostbitten fortresses. But during the brief summer, the planet's orbit brings it perilously close to the sun, causing massive volcanic eruptions and violent melting that floods and reshapes the continents. Entire islands drown, and new ones are born in that fiery season. The human tribes of Fenris are therefore nomadic and warlike, constantly fighting over land and resources during the bitter transitions of season. Only the hardiest survive. On Fenris, even childhood is a trial by fire. It's said that a newborn is given an axe as soon as it can grasp. If the babe is too weak to hold it, it is cast into the icy sea so as not to burden the tribe. This brutal custom, ordained by Primarch Leman Russ himself, ensures that Fenris's people remain exceptionally tough and fearless. The world teems with deadly predators too. Gigantic sea serpents, trolls, and the infamous Fenrisian wolves, massive lupine beasts that stalk the snowfields in packs. From this crucible of brutality emerge the aspirants for the Space Wolves chapter. Only a young man who has proven himself a peerless warrior, having survived Fenris's worst dangers, might be chosen when the Sky Warriors, as the natives call the Space Marines, descend to test them. The Space Wolves' fortress monastery, called the Fang, is a majestic citadel built into the highest peak of Fenris's only stable continent, Asaheim. This mountain is so colossal that it reaches beyond the atmosphere into space. It is essentially both a fortress and a spaceport, a mountain-sized spear rising into the stars. The Fang's halls are hewn from stone and ice, adorned with the trophies of 1,000 hunts. You'll find the pelt of a great ice troll hanging from one wall, and the skull of a massive sea dragon mounted above a feasting hearth. The Space Wolves decorate their armor and halls with runes, knotwork carvings, and the bones and fangs of Fenrisian beasts. The smell of wood smoke, ale, and wet fur often lingers in their gathering places. The culture of the chapter is akin to a brotherhood of merry, mighty warriors. They possess a raucous camaraderie tempered by a deep sense of honor. While they might laugh loudly and boast of deeds in their mead halls, once in battle, the Space Wolves are utterly focused and as merciless as Fenris's winter. In temperament, Space Wolves value personal valor, loyalty, and a love of the fight. They are known to flout rigid protocol and break with bureaucratic procedure, which in the past has put them at odds with more straight-laced imperial institutions, like the Inquisition or even Gilliman's Codex Astartes. For instance, unlike most chapters, the Space Wolves don't strictly follow the Codex's company organization. Instead of companies, they have great companies, each led by a wolf lord who has considerable autonomy. They also do not restrict themselves to exactly 1,000 Space Marines. Their numbers fluctuate, though they roughly adhere to the spirit of the Codex most of the time. This independent streak originates from Leman Russ and the Legion days, when the Emperor often used the Space Wolves as his executioners, an instrument to punish those who betrayed Imperial trust. During the Great Crusade, some of their brother legions feared or scorned them as the Emperor's mad dogs, unleashed to do the dirty work, such as the sanctioned censure of other legions like the Thousand Sons at Prospero. The wolves themselves, however, embraced this fierce reputation with pride. They knew they were doing what had to be done, embodying the All-Father's wrath. As a result, the Space Wolves developed a bit of a lone wolf mentality. They fight for the Emperor and humanity, but on their own terms whenever possible. A newcomer to the Space Wolves chapter quickly learns that storytelling and oral tradition are central to their identity. In the great feasting hall of the Fang, after a victorious campaign, the Space Wolves gather for a boisterous celebration. Ale horns, filled with Fenrisian Mayuad, a potent liquor, clang together. Warriors bellow out saga songs of past heroes. the saga of Bjorn the Fell-Handed, or the Lay of Leman Russ, there is much laughter as well. Space wolves have a bawdy sense of humor and enjoy good-natured jests, often teasing each other about minor missteps in battle. An example, a gray hunter might rib his packmate for losing his helmet to an orc's clumsy swing, and they'll toast to Sven's hard head that no helm can contain. These banters solidify bonds of brotherhood, but underpinning the merriment is a deep spirituality. The Space Wolves do not worship the Emperor as a god in the ecclesiarchal sense. Rather, they revere him as the All-Father, the ultimate chieftain and creator of their Primarch. They have their own priesthood, the Wolf Priests, who combine the roles of chaplain and apothecary. Wolf Priests lead the warriors in howling at midnight to honor Russ and the Emperor. They maintain the Canis Helix gene rituals that create new space wolves from Fenrisian aspirants, a process that is both sacred and perilous. Many aspirants die or transform into monstrous wolfen if the gene seed's feral curse overwhelms them. Within each space wolf beats the heart of a predator, thanks to the gene seed's Canis Helix, which gives them sharpened senses, elongated canines, and an inner wolf. In battle, they often growl or howl as they charge, channeling this ferocity, yet they keep it controlled through strong cultural traditions. They see themselves as the Emperor's wolves, loyal hounds who will rip out the throat of his enemies but never turn on their master. The tale is often told of how Leman Russ, when the Horus heresy broke out, stayed utterly loyal and fought his brother Magnus at the Emperor's command, despite whatever misgivings. That loyalty unto death is drilled into every space wolf, no matter the foe, no matter the cost. A space wolf will stand by the All-Father and the pack. Pack, in fact, is a key concept. They fight in packs, squads, with a mentality of pack unity. A lone space wolf is dangerous, yes, but a pack of space wolves fighting together is devastating. They coordinate almost instinctively, like a pack of actual wolves taking down prey with flanking maneuvers and pincer attacks. On the battlefield, the Space Wolves are renowned for their aggressive, close-quarters style. They favor assault troops, bikes, and dreadnoughts that crash into the foe headlong. Drop pods raining from the sky, laden with gray hunters, they're versatile frontline warriors who leap out with bolt guns firing and chainswords revving is a common opening move, then Land Raider tanks or Thunderwolf cavalry. Yes, some elite Space Wolves ride enormous Fenrisian Thunderwolves, slam into the flanks, while Long Fangs, their Devastator squads, lay down covering fire. Howling and battle cries fill the air, not as intimidation, though it certainly is that to enemies, but as a means of psyching themselves up and affirming their pack bond in the din of war. A favorite cry is, "For Russ and the All-Father," or simply a roaring howl that sweeps across the Vox channels, raising every Space Wolf's hackles in shared feral wrath. They also often call the names of great heroes, almost like invoking ancestors, by the Fang of Morkai. Morkai being a mythical two-headed wolf of Fenrisian legend associated with death. An enemy facing the Space Wolves might first think them crude or berserk, but that underestimates their cunning. The Space Wolves are hunters. On the strategic level, they are patient and calculating, willing to stalk an enemy for months if needed, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Leman Russ was called the Wolf King for his tactical brilliance as much as his martial might. He taught his sons the value of the hunt, scout the prey, identify its weaknesses, then encircle and strike swiftly. A Space Wolf's great company may spend a campaign's early phase performing reconnaissance and sudden raids to unsettle the foe, much like wolves, encircling a herd before committing to the decisive battle. Once they do commit, though, it's like a dam breaking. All the pent-up ferocity is unleashed at once. One famous tradition is that of the saga. Each Space Wolf strives to live a worthy life that the Scalds, storytellers, will immortalize in a personal saga. Deeds of heroism, slaying mighty beasts, saving comrades, facing impossible odds. These add verses to a Space Wolf's saga. When a wolf falls in battle, his brothers will recall his saga around the ale fire that night, ensuring he is remembered. This adds a heartfelt, almost joyful motivation. Each Space Wolf fights not just to win, but to craft a saga that honors Russ and the chapter. Their view of death is akin to Norse-like fatalism. If they die gloriously in battle, they believe they will sit at the Allfather's table with Russ in the afterlife. This makes them utterly unafraid of death. It also means they sometimes take reckless risks, but usually calculated ones. Risk is nothing if it achieves something worthy. The Space Wolves have a few unique ranks. Wolf Scouts, for example, are unlike other chapter scouts who are neophytes. Space Wolf Scouts are actually veteran troopers who range ahead, operating alone behind enemy lines to gather intel or wreak havoc, reflecting how a lone old wolf can be the most cunning hunter, and their dreadnoughts, entombed ancients, are often awakened only in times of great need, such as Bjorn the Fell-Handed, who fought in the heresy itself and still slumbers beneath the Fang, awakening once in a millennium to give counsel, being a living link to the Emperor and Russ. The wolves speak to their revered ancients with familial respect, sometimes even humor. Bjorn is said to be grouchy, and the wolves joke about it in private. One cannot mention the Space Wolves without noting their iconoclastic attitude towards formal institutions. They have a history of disliking the Inquisition and the Adeptus Mechanicus's more restrictive dogma. In one famous incident, the Months of Shame, the Space Wolves even came to blows with the Inquisition over how the survivors of a certain conflict were treated, preferring mercy where the Inquisition ordered extermination. This maverick streak stems from their fierce moral code. They follow their own sense of honor and the Emperor's intent, not necessarily every decree from Terra. They consider themselves ultimate protectors of humanity on a personal level. They'll shield the weak and punish the cruel, even if bureaucrats disagree. That said, they are not rebels or traitors. They simply hold to an older, more direct interpretation of the Emperor's will, as embodied by Leman Russ's example. In peaceful moments on Fenris, a Space Wolf might be found out in the tundra with a pack of Fenrisian wolves running alongside them under the green aurora-filled sky. Indeed, many bond with the native wolves, and some even have them as companions in battle. This kinship with actual wolves further blurs the line between man and beast in their souls, but in a way they find spiritually fulfilling. It is not uncommon to hear a Space Wolf softly singing an old Fenrisian tune to a wolf pup in the kennels of the Fang, or see a mighty wolf lord scratching the ears of a snarling thunderwolf mount, calming it before battle. These sights would seem bizarre in the marble halls of Ultramar or the chapels of the Imperial Fists, but on Fenris it is simply the way of things. In summary, the Space Wolves chapter stands as the Emperor's barbarian knights, loud, boisterous, fiercely independent, but unshakably loyal and undeniably effective. They have guarded the Imperium's northern regions near the Eye of Terror for millennia, throwing back Black Crusades and Xenos incursions time and again with fang and fury. The people of the Imperium's cold frontier worlds know to listen for the distant howling of wolves, for that might mean the Space Wolves are near, and thus hope is near. Many a beleaguered outpost has seen streaking contrails in the sky, followed by the sight of power-armored warriors with lupine motifs, and known salvation had arrived. The Space Wolves may not care for medals or titles from Terra, but they have something better: the love and trust of the common folk who tell countless tales of the Emperor's wolves appearing out of the storm to save them. It's said that on Fenris, in the long winter nights, the sky is so clear one can see the light of the Astronomicon, and the tribes believe it's the Emperor's beacon shining for Russ's sons. And perhaps once in a great while, Leman Russ's own great howl answers from somewhere beyond the stars, urging the Space Wolves onward in their eternal saga of courage. The Ultramarines, noble, disciplined, and exemplars of what it means to be a Space Marine, the Ultramarines are often called the Model Chapter, the Shining Knights of the Imperium. Hailing from the prosperous realm of Ultramar, the Ultramarines chapter carries the gene seed of Primarch Robut Gilliman, the famed strategist and statesman. If the Space Wolves are the Emperor's wolves and the Blood Angels his angels, then the Ultramarines are often seen as his perfect soldiers, balanced in all methods of war, devout, honorable, and utterly reliable. During the Horus Heresy, the Ultramarines were the largest of the Loyalist legions, though a warp storm, the Ruin Storm, kept them away from Terra until the heresy was over. It was Guilliman's leadership in the aftermath that held the Imperium together. In the dark days following the Emperor's internment on the Golden Throne, it was Robut Gilliman who assumed the mantle of Lord Commander of the Imperium. He oversaw the rebuilding of government, the reorganization of the Imperial military, including the second founding of the Space Marines, and countless defensive campaigns against traitors and Xenos. Many credit Gilliman with almost single-handedly saving the Imperium from complete collapse after the heresy. Because of this, the Ultramarines earned a reputation as saviors and exemplary leaders. Gilliman's crowning achievement, the Codex Astartes, became holy writ for the Space Marines. It dictated everything from tactical doctrine to chapter organization. The Ultramarines and their successor chapters, of which there are many, given the Ultramarines' numbers at the heresy's end, have adhered to the Codex for 10 millennia, treating it as the sacred guide to warfare and conduct. This has given the Ultramarines a certain predictability in structure and method, which they view as a strength. They train each battle brother not only to follow orders, but to understand the principles behind them. In doing so, each Ultramarine, from the newest scout to the chapter master, can act with initiative and clear thought in the heat of battle, knowing his actions align with a proven doctrine. This makes the chapter extremely cohesive and versatile. They can fight as disciplined marksmen in ranged fire duels, as zealous close combatants in city fights, or any form required, switching tactics fluidly because all have studied and memorized the Codex's precepts. The Ultramarines' home is the world Macraga, a prosperous and well-defended planet in the realm of Ultramar, a collection of about 500 worlds ruled and protected by the Ultramarines in the Eastern Galaxy. Macraga is a temperate world of majestic mountains and ultramarine blue oceans. Its people live under just laws originally set by Guilliman himself when he ruled as the world's king before the Great Crusade. Macraga's cities are orderly and grand. The culture emphasizes honor, duty, and civic responsibility. In a way, Macrag and Ultramar show what humanity could achieve in an age of peace. They are relatively stable, with functioning economies and minimal corruption, a rarity in the grim Imperium. The Ultramarines consider it their duty not only to defend, but also to govern wisely. Every Ultramarines officer is as much a civil protector as a military leader. It is said that on each world of Ultramar, an Ultramarine veteran sits as planetary governor, ensuring the Emperor's subjects are well cared for, a stark contrast to the tyranny or neglect seen elsewhere in the Imperium. The Fortress of Hera is the Ultramarines' fortress monastery on Macrag, a grand edifice built into a mountainside, overlooking clean, windswept training fields and the polished marble city of Hera. Its halls are filled with banners and statues commemorating 10,000 years of ultramarine victories. Gleaming suits of ceramite from ages past stand like silent sentinels. The fortress's central chamber holds a colossal statue of Robut Guilliman in armor, looking benignly upon all who enter. Within the deepest vault lies Guilliman himself, entombed in stasis for millennia after being wounded by Fulgrim, the Daemon Primarch, in a later age, although there are whispers across the galaxy that Guilliman has since miraculously healed and risen, returning to lead the Imperium once more in this current, tumultuous era. A story perhaps for another time, whether awake or at rest. Guilliman's presence looms large over the chapter. What would the Primarch do is a guiding thought for many Ultramarines in moments of crisis. In character, Ultramarines are often described as calm, resolute, and virtuous. They are less given to excess emotion than some of their brother chapters. While a space wolf might rage and a blood angel might fall into gloomy silence, an ultramarine will keep a level head and assess the situation according to his training. This is not to say they are cold. Ultramarines feel devotion, loyalty, and brotherhood strongly, but they channel these feelings into constructive action as taught by the Codex. An Ultramarines battle company is a tightly bonded fraternity. They address each other as brother without fail. Respect for superiors is deeply ingrained, but it's not blind obedience. Leaders are expected to earn that respect by embodying Ultramarine ideals of courage and wisdom. The chapter has a tradition of mentorship where veterans guide younger Marines in both combat techniques and philosophical understanding. Honor is paramount. The Ultramarines hold numerous ceremonies to mark promotions, heroism, or remembrance of the fallen. For example, when a battle brother distinguishes himself, he might be awarded a laurel wreath to paint on his armor a traditional Ultramarine symbol of honor. When an Ultramarine dies, his name is inscribed in the Roll of Honor in the Fortress of Hera, and one of his fellows might be entrusted to carry a scroll with his name into battle for the next year, so that symbolically the fallen continues to fight by the chapter's side. They have a saying, "Through the Codex we stand, and through honor we act." On the battlefield, the Ultramarines are masters of adaptability. If one observes an Ultramarine force in battle, you'll notice their approach is balanced. Devastators laying down precise covering fire, tactical squads advancing in synchronized movements, assault marines poised to exploit breaches, terminators held in reserve for critical strikes. Discipline shines through. Bolt gun volleys are timed and overlapping, fields of fire coordinated perfectly. Even when chaos of war erupts, the Ultramarines do not lose cohesion. They communicate calmly, using ciphers and tactics straight from Gilliman's teachings. For instance, against a horde of orcs, an Ultramarine commander will execute a textbook defense, letting the enemy break upon a shield wall of fire, then counterattacking at the flank, as per Gilliman's third stratagem of Xenos engagement, as they might refer to it academically among themselves. Against Chaos Marines, they'll be more wary and layered, recalling Codex guidance on countering traitor Astartes, perhaps using veteran squads, stern guard, with specialized ammunition to target the leaders first, since traitors often rally around champions. The point is, the Codex Astartes gives them a playbook for nearly every scenario, and Ultramarines follow it with near unshakable faith. That is not to imply they cannot innovate. On the contrary, Ultramarines are taught that the Codex is a living document. Gilliman intended it to be a guide, not a shackle. Over centuries, they have updated tactics and added appendices after encountering new foes like the Tyranids. Ultramarine strategists are among the finest in the Imperium. Many an Imperial battle group has prospered under the direction of an Ultramarines captain or chapter master. In fact, when multiple chapters fight together, often it is the Ultramarine representative whose counsel is most heeded. Other Astartes trust the Ultramarines' measured approach and wealth of experience. It's said that Marneus Calgar, chapter master of the Ultramarines, can recite large portions of the Codex Astartes by heart, and often adds his own new observations for future generations. Thus, he extends Gilliman's legacy continuously. The public image of the Ultramarines in the wider Imperium is extremely favorable. To common citizens, the Ultramarines are the knights in shining blue armor who personify everything a space marine should be. Many Imperial propaganda posters across segments show a bold Ultramarine with chainsword held high, encouraging youth to be brave and loyal. Statues of Gilliman and Ultramarine heroes stand in many cities beyond Ultramar. Even on Terra, there is an honored statue of Robut Gilliman in the Imperial Palace's Hall of Heroes, at least before the heresy damage. One imagines it's been restored now. The Ultramarines' colors, blue with gold trimming, have become synonymous with the Space Marines as a whole in the minds of many. Indeed, among the uneducated, any Space Marine might be incorrectly referred to as an Ultramarine. This sometimes annoys other chapters, but most let it pass, understanding the cultural shorthand at work. The Ultramarines do not flaunt their renown, but they understand the power of being a symbol. They take care to comport themselves with dignity and kindness when possible in front of civilian crowds. There are anecdotes of Ultramarines helping rebuild infrastructure after a battle, organizing refugee evacuations, or standing guard over Imperial magistrates to ensure justice is done in troubled times. All these small acts further cement them as the ultimate protectors of the people. Inside the chapter, the Ultramarines maintain a culture of continuous improvement. They frequently wargame against each other for practice, whether in the combat simulators or live exercises across the plains of Macragge. The second company might engage in a mock city fight against the third company, for instance, with training weapons and practice rounds, after which they gather and analyze the engagement. What could we do better? This analytical, almost scholarly approach to war sets them apart from more purely instinct-driven chapters. A space wolf relies on gut and experience. A blood angel might rely on zeal and supernatural foresight. An ultramarine uses structured learning and rationale. Yet, despite a reputation for being somewhat by the book, ultramarines are not without heart or heroism. Many ultramarines have performed astounding acts of bravery and self-sacrifice that go beyond any written doctrine. They do it out of love for their chapter, their Primarch, and the Imperium. For example, during the First Tyrannic War, when the Tyranids, an extragalactic swarm of monsters, invaded Ultramar, the Ultramarines fought a desperate defense. In the final battle for Macragge's polar fortress, the Ultramarines' First Company, all veteran Terminators, held the line against endless waves of Tyranids. They fought to the last man, all of them dying to protect the planet. Their ultimate stand saved Macragge and bought time for the rest of the chapter to defeat the Hive Fleet. That selfless sacrifice is now legendary, and the Fortress of Hera contains a shrine with the names of every one of those martyrs. The current generation of Ultramarines look to that example as a high bar to be willing to give everything for Ultramar and the Imperium if needed. It's not duty alone, but a deep-seated honor and love for Macragge, for Guilliman, for their brotherhood. Thus, the Ultramarines endure as perhaps the sturdiest pillar of the Adeptus Astartes, balanced in temperament, strong in faith, rich in history, and plentiful in number. Their genetic legacy populates 2/3 of all the chapters out. There, they influence the fate of the Imperium at every turn. In peaceful times, they build and guide. In war, they lead and prevail. If one were to imagine the Imperium as a grand orchestra of war, the Ultramarines might be the steady drumbeat that keeps the rhythm together, not as flashy as some solos, but absolutely vital. For newcomers, to meet an Ultramarine is to meet the archetype of a Space Marine. You would see a towering figure in cobalt blue power armor, trimmed with gold. Perhaps on his pauldron, you spot the white Omega symbol of Ultramar. He would carry himself with courteous confidence, his voice through the helmet grill, polite but firm. He might even give a slight, respectful nod to a nervous civilian. And when the enemies of the Emperor show themselves, you would then witness that same noble Ultramarine transform into a relentless warrior, barking ordered commands to his squad and laying down precise bolter fire, protecting the innocent with his own body if necessary. In victory, he would not boast. He'd simply radio enemy contact eliminated, reorganizing and moving to next waypoint as dictated by Codex, and perhaps later offer a small encouragement to those he saved. Fear not, the Emperor's justice has been delivered. It is easy to see why the Ultramarines are celebrated as heroic and virtuous across the galaxy. They strive to embody the very best of humanity's warrior spirit, tempered by wisdom and restraint. In the grim darkness of the far future, they remain a beacon of what the Emperor intended for his Space Marines to be. Though the Imperium has much that is dark and dystopian, Ultramar stands as a glimpse of hope, a realm governed mostly justly, defended by warriors who truly care for those under their protection. In conclusion, the Ultramarines chapter is the rock upon which many storms have broken. Through Hive Fleet invasions, Black Crusades, and internal strife, they have held the line and set the example for others. Their Primarch's return in the present era, should one accept current whispers, only bolsters their resolve to lead the Imperium into a new dawn. But even without that divine intervention, the Ultramarines continue their duty as they always have, with courage and honor, their chapter motto, knowing that the strength of Ultramar lies not just in bolters and blades, but in the ideals they carry in their hearts. Daily Life of a Space Marine. Illustration. A vast Space Marine fortress monastery stands silhouetted against a fiery evening sky. Towering buttresses and grand halls are visible, illuminated by a warm glow from within. In this sanctuary, the Adeptus Astartes live, train, and worship in eternal preparation. Inside such mighty fortress monasteries, the daily life of a Space Marine is one of regimented devotion, relentless training, and solemn ritual. Despite their superhuman nature, Space Marines follow a schedule as monastic and structured as any brotherhood of monks. Each day is a cycle of prayer, battle practice, and maintenance, designed to sharpen body and soul alike. Picture the pre-dawn hours in the quiet halls of a chapter's fortress. The hour is 0400 by the schedule, and the vaulted corridors echo softly with the tolling of a great bell. The Space Marines rise from their modest bunks or alcoves, though many need little sleep and spend extra hours in meditation. Clad in simple robes, they assemble in the main chapel beneath towering statues of the Emperor and their Primarch. Here they begin morning prayer, led by a chaplain with a deep, resonant voice. The Space Marines renew their oaths of loyalty to the Emperor. Candlelight flickers across rows of power-armored giants, now kneeling with heads bowed. The chaplain recites litanies. By the blood of martyrs, by the saints and warriors before us, we pledge ourselves anew. In unison, hundreds of voices respond. We are the shield of humanity. We are the sword of the Emperor. We shall know no fear. Relics of the chapter, perhaps the shreds of a banner from an ancient battle, or the weapon of a fallen hero, are displayed at the altar as tangible reminders of their legacy. This prayer session centers the Marines' minds each day on faith, duty, and the higher purpose behind their warfare. It's a surprisingly serene moment. One could hear the faint hum of incense burners, see motes of dust swirling in colored rays cast by stained glass, depicting the chapter's heraldry. Each battle brother contemplates the challenges to come and steels himself spiritually. By 0500, morning firing rites commence. The Space Marines move to the firing ranges, underground vaults that stretch for kilometers, or open courtyards behind fortress walls where targets pop up at varied distances. Here, each Marine engages in target practice with his personal bolter and other squad weapons. There is a sharp, rhythmic bark of bolter fire, the crump of heavier ordnance, even the whoosh of plasma or melta weapons as veterans train with those. The Marines practice with methodical precision, drilling on snapshots, controlled bursts, and long-range shots. Marksmanship is a matter of honor. Those who consistently shoot true might earn a note of praise or a ritual token, perhaps a purity seal affixed to their bolter. Those whose accuracy falters may receive a gruff word of admonishment or a minor penance from the range officer. often a stern veteran sergeant. But among brothers, a bit of friendly competition also exists. One Marine might softly bet another that he can hit more bullseyes in a row. Sometimes awards and punishments are given. An award for the top shot of the day, a mild rebuke for the lowest, fostering a drive to improve. Despite the seriousness, there's camaraderie here. The Marines encourage each other, perhaps teasingly. "Brother Sergeant, I see your aim is as true as ever. Leave some targets for us." The sergeant might reply with a rare chuckle, "Beat my score and I'll buy you a ration of mjod at next feast." All in good spirit, reinforcing bonds while honing skills. Around 700, the focus shifts to battle practice. In amphitheater-like combat arenas or open drill yards, the Space Marines engage in various combat exercises. Some days, this means close quarters sparring, battle brothers dueling one another with practice swords or shock blades. The clash of weapons on ceramite armor rings out in the cool morning air. Other days, they simulate battle conditions, perhaps a live fire exercise in a hazard course, filled with servitor-controlled turrets or moving targets. Sometimes the practice involves squad-level tactics, assault drills breaching a mock habitation block or defending a wall against waves of servitor automatons. For variety, hazardous environment training is included. Marines might train in zero-gravity chambers, floating as they learn to maneuver in fire and vacuum, or in rooms filled with dense smoke, or even submerged in water to practice amphibious fighting. This broad regimen ensures the Astartes are prepared to fight under any conditions. Despite their power, Space Marines treat training with a seriousness that borders on holy reverence. Each duel is a chance to embody the Primarch's skill, each tactical drill an opportunity to mirror the Emperor's own strategies. Senior Marines and captains often observe these sessions, taking notes on their brothers' performances, identifying who shows exceptional skill or who might need extra training or catechism. Some failings can be as much mental as physical, and a brother might be assigned to meditate on a particular battle study if he's found tactically wanting. By the end of battle practice, the transhuman warriors are typically slick with sweat. Yes, they still sweat, and their muscles, enhanced as they are, thrum with energy. A Space Marine's physique can endure far more exertion than a normal human, but even they feel strain and must constantly push their limits to grow. Come midday at 1200, the brethren gather again for midday prayer. This is often shorter, a kind of spiritual recalibration. They might assemble in smaller chapels by company rather than the whole chapter. Here, chaplains, or sometimes the company captain, leads a focused reflection. This could include giving thanks for the victories of the day's training or offering prayers for any injured if a Marine got hurt during harsh practice. For example, the chaplain may also use this time to give a brief sermon or a reading from the chapter's sacred texts, perhaps a passage from the Codex Astartes, or a recounting of a heroic deed by the chapter in ages past. It serves to remind the Marines that even routine training is part of the larger saga of their chapter and the Emperor's work. Additionally, midday prayer is a time any injured Space Marines can officially report to the apothecary for treatment. Though Astartes heal quickly, minor injuries might be tended here to ensure everyone is at peak condition for the afternoon. Immediately after, it's time for the midday meal, 1300 hours or so. This is typically brief by human standards and quite utilitarian, in a grand refectory hall adorned with chapter banners. The Space Marines take sustenance. Their meal might be a thick, nutrient-rich broth or wild grox steaks from local fauna. Often it's stated that Space Marines can eat nearly anything, including raw meat or poisonous creatures, due to their multi-lung and omophagia implants. On Fenris, for example, the Space Wolves might feast on great beasts hunted that morning. On Macragge, Ultramarines might have hardy grains, fruits from Ultramar's agri-worlds, and meat from stock animals. But whatever the fare, the quantity is impressive. Multiple kilograms of food to fuel their enhanced metabolism. Often, chapters incorporate a bit of local flavor. The Blood Angels famously consume a chalice of blood wine, a symbolic mix of wine and small amounts of blood, as part of their meal rituals, representing Sanguinius's blood. Space Wolves are known to wash down meals with ale or mjod in moderation. Russ's lineage encourages some merriment. The mood at midday meal is generally subdued, but fraternal. Marines might quietly discuss the morning's training. Your blade work was strong today, brother. Your form reminded me of our battle in the Hell's Reach drills. Thank you, though I noted I overextended on one thrust. I'll correct it. Others might review tactical journals or data slates even while eating. Ever studious. It's free time in a sense, but Space Marines rarely idle. By 1315, the Marines move on to tactical indoctrination sessions. In a lecture hall or via holo briefing, officers and specialists share knowledge on a wide array of topics. One day, it might be a briefing on a newly encountered Xenos species, describing its physiology, strengths, and weaknesses. For example, an Ultramarines lieutenant might give a talk on Tyranid variant bioforms, since the chapter has rich experience fighting them. On another day, it might be a discussion of a historical battle from the Great Crusade or a recent campaign, analyzing strategy and what can be learned. Marines are expected to contribute. Perhaps a sergeant stands and recounts first-hand experience, or a librarian, psychers of the chapter, briefs everyone about dealing with enemy witches. Sometimes this period is used to debrief the morning's training. If in the morning battle practice, a squad performed exceptionally or poorly, their captain may discuss it here. In the Hab block exercise, 4th squad cleared each room efficiently, but 3rd squad lagged behind protocol at breach point C. Let's examine why, and they'll do a play-by-play review with helmet cam footage on holo display. All Marines watching and constructively critiquing. This level of analysis ensures mistakes are learned from and successes are codified. It's a very studious vibe. One might compare it to warrior scholar monks parsing ancient texts of war. Indeed, Space Marines, especially those like Ultramarines, are warrior scholars. Gilliman's own traditions emphasize intellectual development, so reading strategy tomes and writing treatises is not uncommon for Ultramarines. Other chapters may be less bookish, but still have their own version of indoctrination. Space Wolves, for instance, might sit in their great hall and hear the rune priests tell saga-like accounts of battles to impart lessons. A more oral tradition, but serving similar purpose. After the afternoon class, around 1500, battle practice resumes, often with a different focus. This second session might emphasize large-scale maneuvers or combined arms. For instance, the Marines might conduct war games with armored vehicles and dreadnoughts supporting them. Picture a wide training plain or a barren moon surface rhinos, razorbacks, perhaps a land raider, and even a towering, revered dreadnought marching at the fore, maybe a venerable one who volunteers to help train the neophytes, all working with devastator squads and assault squads to simulate a full battle. They practice new tactics introduced in the earlier indoctrination. If the morning class covered a new anti-tyrannid formation, the afternoon drill will attempt to apply it in a mock engagement with simulated bio-horrors, servo-automata, or holographic targets representing them. This practical implementation cements the day's learning. Often a trial occurs. Say a new tactic is tested. If it works, great. If not, they iterate. The Tech Marines might also use this time to test new weapons or war gear in the field. It's intense, and by the end, the Space Marines have essentially fought a small war by simulation. Casualties in training aren't common. Their power armor and skill avoid accidents, but it's not unheard of for a Marine to get broken bones or such, which by evening the apothecary will treat, or the Marine's own Laramin cells, rapid healing blood, will have partially mended. As the sun, if on a planet, starts to dip or cycle, moves towards evening, at 2000 hours, the Marines gather for evening prayer. This mirrors morning prayer, but now with the tone of reflection. They thank the Emperor for the strength to improve that day, and remember any brethren who have fallen in battle. Space Marines often recite names of those who died on that date in history, keeping their memory alive daily. It's also a time some chapters do gene seed sampling. The apothecaries perform routine checks on a few Marines to monitor the health of their implanted gene seed organs, making sure no mutations or issues are developing. This can happen during or just after evening prayers. Often every Marine is tested in a rotating schedule. It's a quick procedure, perhaps a small device extracting a tissue or blood sample from the Marine's neck or chest ports. The Marine doesn't even flinch, continuing to mouth the litany of devotion as the apothecary does his work. Next, at 2100, is evening meal, akin to the midday meal, but often a bit more elaborate if circumstances allow. Some chapters treat this as a feast by human standards, although to Astartes it's just sufficient nutrition plus maybe a reward of taste. Chapter serfs, the human staff, prepare tables laden with high-protein dishes. On many nights, this meal is accompanied by some camaraderie. A company might dine together, and the captain could allow a cask of ale or amasec, liquor, to be opened in moderation. They recount the day's best moments, perhaps jovially retelling a scene where a clumsy servitor target fooled a brother or praising a particular Marine's prowess. It's a bonding time. For certain chapters, ritual toasts are made. To the Emperor, to Rogel Dorn, to our fallen, etc. If a mission is upcoming, the atmosphere can be more solemn as they steel themselves for war. But on a normal day, the tone is proud and fraternal. Notably, some chapter masters or leaders mingle at this time, showing approachability. An Ultramarines chapter master might walk among the tables, hand on a younger Marine's shoulder, giving a quick word of encouragement about his progression. In such small interactions, the chapter's unity is fostered across all ranks. By 2130, many Space Marines partake in night firing exercises if their environment permits. This entails practicing ranged combat in low light or no light conditions, honing their multispectral vision and target acquisition at night. If the fortress is on a world with a day-night cycle, they might do this outdoors under the stars or in artificially darkened ranges. They also simulate exotic conditions, firing underwater in a submerged firing range or through dense fog/smoke pumped into a chamber or in a vacuum-sealed dome for zero atmosphere practice. These scenarios keep their skills razor sharp. A space marine is taught to fight in any theater by adding these irregular conditions at night. They ensure no surprises in actual battle. The Marines actually enjoy these challenges. One might hear a brother exult, no atmosphere and target at 300 meters, just like the Phobos range, eh? As he hits a bullseye in vacuum. Friendly rivalry can spark here too. Who can snipe the most targets in pitch darkness fastest, etc. Of course, their advanced helmets help significantly with auto senses in infrared, ultrasonic, etc. But they often train with those sensors off to practice raw eyesight and instinct as well. By 23:15 hours, it's time for maintenance rituals. Every Space Marine takes personal responsibility for his war gear. In an armory chamber lit by lumen strips and scented with holy unguents, you'd find rows of Astartes seated on benches, their power armor removed or in pieces, as they diligently clean and repair it. A tech marine or two might supervise, but largely the Marines themselves disassemble bolt weapons, resharpen chainsword teeth, polish ceramite plates, and anoint machinery with sacred oils. They intone the proper litanies to the machine spirit of each weapon and armor as they work, the Imperium's blend of religion and tech. For example, a Marine softly chants, "Machine spirit, calm and keen, bless this bolter that it strike true again." Maintaining one's own gear is seen as a solemn duty and honor. It connects the warrior to his tools of war, reinforcing that man and weapon are one. Often, veterans will help initiates ensure they learn the intricacies of a plasma gun or the temperamental nature of a jump pack's turbines by inspecting every inch of their gear nightly. Marines also catch anywhere that needs a Tech Marine's more expert hand. Tech Marines might pass through handing out replacement parts or engraving new purity seals for those whose gear performed exceptionally that day. They check the armor's power systems, while the Marines polish and refit joints. This meticulous care means that come battle, each suit and weapon functions at peak efficiency, and any hint of potential failure is remedied ahead of time. Finally, around 2345, a short period of free time is allowed. To a human, this is laughably brief, 15 minutes, maybe a half hour at most, but to a Space Marine, it is enough. Many chapter masters consider free time frivolous and discourage too much of it, but a few moments to oneself are still scheduled. What does a superhuman do with free time? Some meditate in silence, calming their thoughts. Some read. Yes, there are those who read texts, prayers, or even poetry. Blood angels in particular appreciate fine art and literature. A blood angel might spend his few free minutes adding strokes to a canvas or lines to a poem he's crafting. A space wolf might whittle a piece of bone into a trinket or tell a last light-hearted joke to a friend. An Imperial fist might obsessively do minor fortress maintenance. They can't sit idle, so maybe he's tightening some wall screws or decorating his shield with a new honor marking. Essentially, they reflect on the day's lessons or engage in a quiet hobby that suits their chapter's culture. Often this free time is alone in their small cell-like rooms or on a rampart looking at the stars, thinking of home or the Emperor. but it's short, just a breath in the grand routine. Many Marines even skip it entirely, regarding extra practice or study as more virtuous. As one captain put it, free time is given, not taken, implying if you have duties, you do them. Only if absolutely nothing else is pressing might you relax, and even then, likely in contemplation of service. At roughly 0000 hours, midnight by human terms, the rest period begins. Space Marines are allocated 4 hours of sleep or rest in a 24-hour cycle. Thanks to their gene enhancements and conditioning, this is sufficient. Some even sleep less, using techniques to enter a trance that provides rest in shorter spans. They return to their quarters, simple chambers, often containing a cot or slab, a shrine to the Emperor or Primarch, and personal effects like honor scrolls or a service stud display. Many will kneel by their bed, utter a final prayer of thanks or a plea for strength tomorrow. Then they lie down, and within moments, their bodies recuperate at an accelerated rate. Their catalepsy node, one of their implants, allows them to shut off sections of the brain sequentially so they can technically stay semi-alert even while asleep. Some Marines literally sleep standing or strapped in armor in war zones, half awake, but in the safety of the fortress they can afford to fully rest. The silence of night in a fortress monastery is profound, a stillness broken only by the low hum of distant generators and the footsteps of a few sentries. Perhaps a squad is always awake, rotating through guard duty. In those hours, a Space Marine's body knits minor wounds. Their mind subconsciously replays the catechisms of hate, as they call their mental training to fortify their soul. There are even suggestions that in dreams some Marines receive visions, maybe a psychic Primarch's guidance, or just the mental sorting of all the information they consumed that day. And before you know it, at 0400, the bell will toll again, and they rise to repeat the cycle, day after day, year after year. For decades and centuries, Space Marines keep this relentless routine. It is this ceaseless discipline that forges them into angels of death. While others sleep or play, the Adeptus Astartes are honing every facet of their being for war. This is their life, not one of comfort or personal freedom, but of total dedication. They find fulfillment and brotherhood in it. Each day lived is another day to better themselves and prepare to vanquish the foes of the Emperor. In the quiet corners of the fortress at night, one might find a chaplain pacing the halls, ever vigilant over his flock, or a librarian gazing at the stars from a balcony, murmuring a psychic ward. Come dawn, all will be back to the grand purpose. Indeed, for a Space Marine, the routine itself is a form of prayer, a constant offering of effort to the Emperor. Through the rhythmic cadence of drills and the polished gleam of a bolter's barrel, they show devotion. It's often said among them, the difference between honed steel and rust is a single day's neglect. They do not neglect a single day. When duty calls and a mission arises, this daily pattern adapts. The chapter might mobilize in the middle of the night if an astropathic alert comes. The Marines can forgo sleep entirely for days when on campaign, using their Susan membranes, another implant, to enter suspended animation on long void voyages, or catch micro-rest when possible. But whenever they return from war, they resume this regimen to recover and recenter. Thus, the daily life of a Space Marine is equal parts martial training, spiritual exercise, and maintenance. It is a life devoid of normal pleasures or family. The chapter is their family, the emperor their father, and war their fate, and they embrace it with a zealous fervor that few mortals can comprehend. After witnessing such a day in the fortress monastery, a humble human serf once remarked, "They do not build heroes in a day, but see here how each day builds a hero indeed. Every prayer, every drill, every midnight bolt round, fired in practice, is a brick in the towering edifice of a Space Marine's legend. In a gentle sense, there is even beauty to this life. The synchronous movements of hundreds of power-armored warriors practicing sword katas in a moonlit courtyard have a strange grace. The echoes of their chant in a basilica have harmony. The devotion with which a veteran inscribes a tiny oath of moment on his pistol, hands steady despite enormous power, has a reverential artistry. To live with such clarity of purpose, freed from doubt and distraction, is almost enviable in a galaxy of confusion. It is an existence honed to a fine, unyielding edge, like the blade of a well-maintained chainsword. At rest, it is still, quiet, even noble, but in motion, it is terrifying and magnificent. And so, day by day, the Space Marines remain ever vigilant and prepared. In their fortress monasteries on countless worlds, from the snowy peaks of Fenris to the golden spires of Baal, these rituals play out. It is a comforting thought for the Imperium citizens that even while they sleep, the angels of death are awake, praying and training by candlelight and weapon flash, keeping their eternal watch. Should the enemies of mankind strike at tomorrow's dawn, the Space Marines will be ready, armored, armed, minds and bodies perfectly drilled, and they will go forth, as they have so many times, to do the Emperor's work with bolter, blade, and an unshakable faith. In the hush of night, across the stars, countless warriors kneel and intone the Emperor's name. Their armor at their feet gleams from loving care. Their hearts are fearless. When morning comes, they rise as one. The Space Marines, humanity's champions, calm, implacable, and utterly devoted to our defense. In their gentle routines and fierce battles alike, they are the bulwark against which the enemies of mankind shall break. And in that steadfast presence, we, the lay people of the Imperium, find solace and hope.